So I'm sitting in here right now with Eronmosele Aziba from Afrinvest Securities. I get a whole load of analysts, and sometimes they just get into my head and get me confused. So I've got to have something to do about these names and all of that. But it's good to have them all around trying to unpack everything for us. So it was a very nice time the stock market have had since April, when the Central Bank of Nigeria rolled out the I&E called the Investors and Exporters window, where we've seen close to $10 billion in FX transactions as investors decide what to do with their entry and exit into the financial services industry. So everyone looks very happy with that. Then we had April, May, June, and July, and the market was really strong. Then August came in with a little bit of lukewarm. Then September looks like it's going to be hot. So I'm wondering whether we are cold, or we are hot, or we are lukewarm. Eronmosele Aziba, good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you had a nice weekend.
Yes, I did.
And a lot of football over the weekend. I'm going to be all over the football today. I saw the run-up, and I was playing what, but I decided to stay on the sideline. So how did your team perform?
It was actually quite good. They came back from a negative performance in their last two games.
From being bearish?
Yeah, from being bearish to being bullish, so it's positive.
So who did they play with?
Bournemouth, and they won 3-0.
3-0? Yeah. I saw another 5-0.
Yeah, that was Manchester City versus Liverpool, which was quite surprising, but hey.
We should be analyzing football one of these days. We should just leave stocks alone and just get bored with all these numbers, like some of the ones you've put in here today. Too many figures about the stock market, when we could actually be talking about football, even though some folks, those who play in the football ball, are the ones making the money and not investors. Okay, so let's get to the equities market. We've had a very nice time so far this year, but now I'm beginning to think whether this rally is over for the year, or perhaps I'm getting too pessimistic because they have the fourth quarter to deal with. Yes. Okay, so thanks for these 3 pages that you sent to us as far as the charts are concerned. The 5 major sectoral performances, and we can just start to put that out there for Eronmosele to talk to these numbers for between January, February, and March. That's the first quarter. So let's push that out first to look at. What's your reading of where the market was? Were we looking for direction in first quarter, or did we know where we're going, or we're just looking for how we should move when the year started?
So generally in first quarter, we still had sentiments were still very bearish, lingering from the early 2015 all the way till the end of the year, and 2016 as well. We know that the FX challenges that we're having had significantly dampened investor sentiment, and we still saw a lingering effect of that in the first quarter of the year, hence the negative performance that we saw. I mean, even into the second quarter of the year, it was at the tail end of the first month of April, when the I&E FX window was launched, that we saw a significant improvement in market performance as investor sentiment was somewhat restored, and this was sustained all through the quarter.
If you take that back a little bit with my production team, back to January, February, and March, and that's the Q1, it was quite significant that almost all the sectors were in the red, save for the banking, and that's the January 2017. You can see that in column 2. And then we have the consumer goods, the industrials, the insurance, and the oil and gas, all significantly in the red. And if you look at the consumer goods and the industrial goods, that's where we bled the most in the first quarter. I'm looking at February. The consumer goods was down 11% from January, 7.2. Not so much of a tapering in March. Then we have the industrial goods also down between January and February. You think we haven't gotten the I&E window by this time?
No, we haven't.
So what happened in March? Was it the fact that the market was smelling a bit of what the central bank will do, or because a bit of a policy from the fiscal space, a little bit of a, well, maybe the administration has an idea of what it's doing, then we may begin to claw our way back.
Well, I mean, as at that time, it was quite obvious that a lot of the stocks were trading at relatively cheaper valuations when compared to peers across other markets. And considering the fact that markets usually move in cycles, especially when you don't have any macroeconomic challenges that are holding the market back, we started to see some bargain hunting in the market. Again, there might have been some whiff of the fact that some moves were made towards the introduction of some new FX policies in the market. So we believe some investors might have gotten a sense of that, and we started to see market performance pick up.
Yes, because March was quite significant. Consumer goods was a comeback 6.7%, industrial goods 3.4%, insurance about 0.75%, oil and gas even did 1.5%, and overall the market was about 0.75%. But if you look at the second quarter, where the GDP came out from last week, it looks like almost everyone was in the green territory. That is April to June.
Yes.
And this is the best quarter year to date.
Yes.
With the exception of consumer goods in April. And insurance, well, if you throw that out of the window, and the NSE, oil and gas, the rest will look very beautiful.
Yes, I mean, second quarter was very, very positive across the market, with almost all the indices appreciating. I mean, even for the consumer goods index, it was only in April that we had that index down, but in May and June, the index was up. But like I mentioned earlier, following the launch of the window, we started to see a lot of foreign investors come back into the market. Even domestic players were taking position ahead of the influx of foreign inflows back into the market, and we saw the performance, coupled with the fact that most of the stocks were still trading at relatively cheaper prices. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw a lot of investors take position in these stocks, and this was what drove the general rally that we saw across the market in that quarter.